Girl walked in for an interview, but the boss didn't even bother to look up. She thought the girl was too fat and didn't fit their fashion magazine's vibe at all. She didn't care that the girl graduated from Northwest University with an impressive academic record. Before the girl could even finish speaking, the boss waved her off, dismissing her to leave. Andy walked away, feeling defeated, but couldn't shake off the frustration.
I'm smart. I learn fast and I will work.
Just then, someone walked into the office, interrupting her. Seeing that the boss didn't care at all, Andy had no choice but to leave, feeling a sense of emptiness. However, what she didn't expect was that the very words she spoke before leaving changed Miranda's mind. The chief assistant, Emily, called her back and told her she had gotten the job every girl dreams of. Although Andy didn't understand why she passed the interview, it didn't matter anymore. For her, as long as she had a job that could help pay the rent, she was already content. But her friend, who knew the fashion industry, warned her that this job might be a hot potato. After all, although Miranda is a significant figure in the fashion world, she is also known for being difficult to deal with. This was evident when Andy went for the interview today. Simply because Miranda arrived an hour early, the entire office was thrown into chaos. Even if you've only taken one bite of breakfast, you must throw it away immediately. Even if a meeting is halfway through, you must first tidy yourself up, because you can't appear in front of her without makeup, nor can you wear flat shoes. The moment she steps into the elevator, even if there are already employees inside, they will all make way for her. Working at Runway, the world's top fashion magazine, requires absolute obedience to Miranda. Despite Miranda's autocracy and difficulty, many girls still fight to work here. This is because after working under Miranda for a year, you will definitely be sought after by major magazines. It is for this reason that Andy, who has no interest in the fashion industry and only wants to be a professional journalist, came here for an interview. But soon, Andy felt the intensity of the job. Not long after 6 o'clock the next day, the chief assistant, Emily, called to wake her up. By the time she arrived, everyone else was already there. Emily warned her that there would be no second chances. She then began explaining her job duties. All she had to do was answer the phone and handle miscellaneous tasks. Miranda's calls must never be missed. During work hours, only one of them could leave at a time. If one was absent, the other was not even allowed to use the bathroom. If there was a tiny mistake, she would be fired immediately. And when Miranda called her, she didn't even bother to remember her name, nor did she answer any of her questions. As she left the room, she gave Andy's outfit a dismissive glance. It wasn't just Miranda. Her colleagues would openly mock her outfit as well. Even when eating at the company, her high-carb food choices would be mocked. If Miranda had any requests, she wouldn't even have time to eat. During meetings, someone pulled out 2 almost identical belts and asked Miranda to choose which one to pick. At this point, Andy still viewed fashion with an intellectual sense of superiority, believing it was merely a shallow facade. She didn't take the job seriously, which, unsurprisingly, led to Miranda's criticism. But it was the people in the fashion industry who chose cerulean from a sea of blues, giving Andy the chance to find this blue sweater in a discount store. Their choices had a huge impact on millions of industries and people's lives. Although Miranda had harshly criticized her, Andy still felt deeply resentful. She still viewed the job as a stepping stone, thinking that if she could just get through this year, everything would get better. She pushed through for a while. Despite the hard work, Andy became more and more skilled at handling various tasks. This weekend, with Miranda flying to Miami, Andy thought she would finally get a break and even planned a dinner with her father, who was visiting from Ohio. But halfway through dinner, Miranda's call came through. It turned out that due to extreme weather, Miranda's return flight had been canceled, but she absolutely had to attend her twin daughter's performance the next morning. She demanded that Andy find her a flight home, no matter what. With no time to complain, Andy started contacting airlines. But no matter how much she begged, she couldn't find a single flight willing to take off in such weather. As expected, Andy couldn't complete the task. Miranda didn't manage to make it to her daughter's performance. When Monday came and Miranda returned to the office, she didn't explode in anger. Instead, she calmly expressed her disappointment in Andy. But those words hurt Andy more than any yelling ever could. She held back the tears that were about to spill and went to Nigel, the only person at the company she could call a friend, to vent. However, after hearing her out, Nigel didn't offer any comfort. Instead, he was cold and indifferent. In his eyes, Andy didn't love the job, and because she wasn't fully invested, how could she expect Miranda to treat her well? Nigel's words were a wake-up call for Andy. Although she wasn't interested in fashion, she had a strong competitive spirit. When she put her heart into something, she would give it her all to make it the best. It was this very quality that Miranda had seen in her in the first place. At first, Andy, who had dreams of being a journalist, saw this job as just a stepping stone. She didn't care about fashion, let alone understand its meaning or details. However, after being harshly criticized by Miranda and with the help of her colleague Nigel, the determined Andy finally began to commit to this job. She not only changed her style to fit the role of a fashion assistant but also adopted a more proactive attitude. She no longer waited for Miranda to assign tasks. She analyzed Miranda's difficult work habits and solved problems before Miranda even asked. For the first time, Miranda took a good look at her, accurately called her name, and gave her an extremely important task: to deliver magazine samples to Miranda's house. The chief assistant, Emily, warned Andy that Miranda valued her privacy immensely and repeatedly instructed her to leave immediately after dropping off the samples without snooping around. But on her first visit to Miranda's house, Andy was a bit lost. Misled by Miranda's twin daughters, she inadvertently witnessed an argument between Miranda and her husband. For Miranda, who is extremely private and strict with her subordinates, this was undoubtedly unacceptable. Although Miranda said nothing at the time, the next day, when Andy entered the office, Miranda gave her a task: to get the latest copy of Harry Potter. Andy knew that Miranda was deliberately making things difficult for her. If she couldn't get it done, she'd be fired. She sprang into action, calling all her classmates who worked in publishing, but they all said they didn't have the manuscript. With no other options left, Andy thought instead of continuing to be tormented by Miranda, it might be better to quit with some dignity. When she told her boyfriend about her decision, he fully supported her. He felt it was the right move, as she seemed to have changed into a different person over the course of all this work. Just then, a writer she had met at a fashion party called. His friend was in charge of designing the cover for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and he managed to get Andy a copy of the manuscript. At the last possible moment, Andy finally completed the impossible task and placed the manuscript right in front of Miranda. But Miranda still found an excuse to pick on her. Andy's outstanding performance even impressed the usually picky Miranda. However, when Andy suddenly changed her mind and decided not to quit, her boyfriend was extremely upset. He felt that Andy had been getting more and more absorbed in her work, and that they were growing apart. After finally appeasing her boyfriend, Andy vented to her colleague Nigel about the situation the next day on the set of the photo shoot. It was then that Nigel said the most important line in the whole movie.
Let me know when your whole life goes up in smoke. That means it's time for a promotion.
Just in time, Miranda was set to attend an important dinner, but her chief assistant, Emily, had caught the flu. So Miranda asked Andy to accompany her too. The two assistants' job was to memorize the names of all the guests at the dinner, so they could remind Miranda during the event. First, everything went smoothly. Emily effortlessly reminded Miranda of each guest's name and profession. But when a man approached them, perhaps due to the flu, Emily suddenly couldn't remember who he was. That evening, Andy's outstanding performance undoubtedly made Miranda rely on her even more. But just as Nigel had said, as her career advanced, her personal life began to unravel. By attending this dinner, Andy missed the chance to celebrate her boyfriend's birthday, and this time, he wasn't so easy to placate. Andy could only silently blow out the candles on the cupcake by herself. But an even bigger challenge was yet to come. The next day, Miranda told Andy that she would be replacing Emily to accompany her to Paris Fashion Week. Andy froze in place. Going to Paris Fashion Week had always been Emily's dream. Although Emily was mean to her, Andy knew how much she had sacrificed for this dream. Andy begged Miranda to change her mind, but Miranda said that if Andy dared to refuse, it would mean she didn't care about her own future. She also insisted that Andy personally deliver the news to Emily. Even the coat that would usually end up on Andy's desk was thrown onto Emily's. As Andy struggled with how to tell Emily, she was shocked to hear that Emily had been in a car accident. Andy rushed to visit her and feeling guilty, she told Emily about Miranda's decision. Emily immediately exploded, accusing Andy of stabbing her in the back and asking why she hadn't just refused Miranda. But Andy could only weakly explain that it was all Miranda's decision. Later that night, when Andy vented to her boyfriend about work, he exploded too. He said Andy had changed and was choosing her job over her life. After a heated argument, they broke up. But the glamour of Paris Fashion Week quickly made Andy forget her troubles. The luxury of it all was overwhelming, and Andy couldn't help but be dazzled by it. But it was also here that Andy saw another side of Miranda. Miranda, without makeup and wrapped in a gray bathrobe, looked exhausted. She told Andy that there was no need to reserve a seat for her husband at the next luncheon. It turned out that, just like Andy, Miranda's immense career success had come at the expense of her personal life. After all, there are only 24 hours in a day, and one's energy is limited. Miranda had put all her heart into her career, naturally neglecting her family life. She wasn't concerned with what the ruthless media would write about her. What worried her was that her twin daughters would once again be disappointed. If Andy had once viewed Miranda with a mix of fear and admiration, now, seeing Miranda's vulnerability, Andy felt a sense of relatability. So, the next day, when Andy learned from a familiar writer that the investors at Runway were planning to replace Miranda with Jacqueline, a more cost-effective editor, she immediately went to Miranda to inform her. But Miranda seemed very calm, not at all panicked, and even went on stage to host the luncheon. Confused, Andy could only take a seat. On the stage, Miranda was supposed to announce that Nigel would become a partner at an international brand, something he truly deserved after decades of hard work under her. But when Miranda made the announcement, both Andy and Nigel froze. It turns out that the well-connected Miranda had known about the investors' plans to replace her all along. She acted preemptively, not only offering Jacqueline, the candidate, an equally prestigious job, but also presenting the investors with a list of top-tier photographers, models, and other big names. She told them that if she were to leave, all those people would cut ties with Runway. With this mixture of threats and persuasion, Miranda secured her position as editor-in-chief of Runway, but the price was Nigel. Miranda greatly appreciated that Andy came to warn her as soon as she learned the news. She saw herself in Andy. However, Andy disagreed because she would never do that to Nigel. Miranda, however, unexpectedly remarked that she had already done the same thing to Emily. At this moment, Andy felt incredibly lost. She watched as Miranda made her way through the crowd, surrounded by people. She understood the price she would have to pay if she continued down this path. Without a second thought, she turned and walked away. Even when Miranda called her, Andy just smiled and calmly threw her phone into the fountain. Back in New York, Andy returned to her roots and began looking for a job in the journalism industry she had always loved. While interviewing for a position at a newspaper, the interviewer asked her about her time working at Runway. On the still bustling streets of New York, Miranda and Andy meet again. Andy waves to Miranda in greeting. Miranda remains as cold and aloof as ever. But as she sits in the car and looks out at Andy, a smile tugs at the corner of her mouth.
Go.
With that, the movie ends. The Devil Wears Prada is adapted from Lauren Weisberger's best-selling novel of the same name, and much of the film's plot is inspired by her real-life experiences. I am so fascinated by Meryl Streep's performance in this movie, as well as the character's development throughout. This film is truly a modern culture classic.
Is there some reason that my coffee isn't here? Has she died or something?
Feel free to share your thoughts on the movie in the comments, and I'll see you in the next movie.